Welcome back to our monthly Health Matters discussion. This is our panel discussion where we talk about different topics related to health every single month, and we get experts in the field to talk about it with us. So today we are joined by two staff members from LAHC. So we have Jenna Seidlich and Katie Welko, and I'm going to toss it to them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So Jenna, if you would tell us a little bit about yourselves, please.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Jenna. My background is primarily in public health. I have a bachelor's in public health and a minor in nutrition and food science. I also have certifications in personal training and nutrition coaching, and I'm currently in school to become a clinical counselor.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Katie, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Katie. I have my bachelor's degree in nutrition, and I also have a certification in physical training and nutrition coaching.
Perfect. So today or this month's Health Matters topic is going to be about staying healthy through the holidays. So the holidays can be a period of a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of different things going on, and especially relating to diets. We have a whole bunch of sweets. So we're talking about different ways to manage stress and stay healthy during the holidays. So let's start with the stress related topics. So we all know that holidays, we have relatives, we have friends, we have family, we have all sorts of different things going on. So I'd like to the question to you both to what is one way or what are some ways to deal with financial stress during the holidays?
I used to work at a grocery store, so I'm pretty familiar with how to save money that way because obviously the holidays we go shopping, we buy a lot of food. Um, Making a grocery list and making a game plan is huge. Trying to stay away from the impulse buys, the cookies, the cakes is going to not only save your on your waistline, but also in your pocketbook. And then looking for coupons in different grocery on your grocery store apps to see if you can save some money there. I think a lot of people tend to forget about those. Trying to stay with the seasonal produce is also really, really big. It's going to taste better and it's going to be cheaper. However, if you want to add something that's not in season, buy it frozen or canned, but just make sure it's low sodium. And then another thing that people don't ever think about is making sure that you're not overbuying because we tend to waste. I am the queen of overbuying for holidays. I completely aware of that, but I think a lot of times, especially when we're buying meats, we tend to overbuy. A good rule of thumb, especially with something with turkey, is a pound to a pound and a half per person is going to give you leftovers, and that's really all you need. So if you're buying a 20-pound turkey for 5 people, it's really wasteful and it's going to be frustrating because you have all this food left over. Plus, it's really expensive.
Yeah, I think those are great points. When I think about seasonal foods to keep in mind, I think about like squash is a big winter one in Michigan. I'm sure Matthew and Katie, you can jump in on other seasonal examples. But another thing to keep in mind is, right, this is a time of year where we get to be surrounded by our families or our chosen families, and we can definitely incorporate them in the prep work, in the gift buying. So we can do potlucks, so all the financial burden of food isn't put on us. And we can do the same thing with gifts. You can do gift card trades, white elephants, secret Santas, and that can also cut down on those expenses during this time.
Wow, yeah, wonderful tips for all sorts of different stressors during the holidays. And that's a wonderful segue to our next kind of stressor is what are some ways that we could kind of deal with the family members that maybe stress us out or cause us anxiety, whether, we're worried about what they think of, like if our house is ready enough for them to visit, or if there's like one aunt or uncle or other relative that just might cause issues. What are some ways that we might be able to alleviate some of these stressors or at least lessen their effect on us?
I think one thing we can keep in mind, and this will probably be a theme of mine for a lot of our topics, is allowing yourself those breaks and spaces and boundaries. So if we do have relatives that frustrate us, find our push points, or what have you, going into that guest bedroom and taking a moment, maybe finding that confidant in your family to go on a walk with or take separate seating somewhere else. And I think we don't need to separate ourselves completely from people who frustrate us. But I think giving ourselves that pass and those like moments for our benefit is a great idea.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jenna about taking the breaks. Another thing that you can do is remember why you're grateful for your family members. There's always that little bit of something in there that you're grateful for. And I think gratitude is a great way to turn a negative attitude into a positive one. I think sometimes we go into the situation where we're already feeling a little bit negative. So instead of having that negative interaction, think about what makes it positive. Like, are they funny? Are they, do they have unique characteristics that we admire or we enjoy being around? And that might help kind of alleviate some of the stress.
Wonderful. Thank you both for those answers. Those are really helpful answers. So related also to relatives, I mean, children can be a huge cause of stress. So what might be some strategies that we could either deal with our own children if we have them, or our relatives' kids. So kids just in general during the holidays.
I think keeping kids entertained seems important, and as a non-parent seems like the priority and the challenge, because right, kids are out of school for extended periods of time. One thing to kind of tie it to those family members, I think this is a time of year where we get to be around people, hopefully that we really love and who appreciate us. So allowing them to step in and help with childcare or child just general entertainment, I think is a great idea. And if you have the time and resources to be with your kids actively, I think getting them outside, getting them moving, just like us, I think being active and playful is definitely going to help keep their energy levels flat, so you won't get any sort of crazy peaks, and they'll rest well, just like you will from maybe building a snowman or going sledding or going on a walk.
Yeah, wonderful. I really like the idea of incorporating all of our family into the parenting aspect, because it's a time of year where a lot of our, if we have children, our brothers and our sisters, all of our family don't get to see our children, so they can kind of jump in, and it's not a daily task for them. So it's more fun for them to interact with their nieces and their nephews and grandchildren and all the sort of relations. So yeah, I think that's a really wonderful point.
The only thing I have to add is keeping to a routine as much as possible, trying to keep the bedtime routine just the best that you can. Obviously, there's events like New Year's Eve where the kids are going to go to bed a little bit later, but keeping to the routines is going to make them feel more comfortable. And routines are healthy. So trying to do that as best as you can, which I know is a little bit difficult, but especially the meal times, trying to stick to the regular eating times, what they normally eat, so they're not eating too much sugar, which could spike their blood sugar and make them go a little crazy. So trying to do the best that you can.
So for our last kind of stress related topic, I wanted to kind of touch on just the general busyness of the holidays. So the entire month of December for me has just been kind of running around and getting everything all set. What are some strategies to deal with that kind of stress? Because we know it's probably not going to go away until the holidays are over.
I think one thing we can do to combat the stress of busyness, so this doesn't necessarily combat busyness itself, but is to still take time for ourselves during the holidays. So from a physical activity aspect, if you've got a great workout routine that works for you most of the year. I think sticking to that the best you can, or at least giving yourself permission to do that if you want to, giving yourself that 30 minutes to an hour where you're using your body, grateful for your body, nourishing your body. I think that's one way that we can definitely cope better with busyness.
Yeah, definitely. I like the point that you made where it's this month and this season is just busier than normal. So dealing with busyness is probably not going to work, but dealing with the stress is really going to be what helps us. My next question at large, our next topic is kind of going to relate to, our diets during the holidays. So it's a wonderful time of year. All of our friends that love to bake and to cook are doing their best to produce a lot of wonderful, tasty meals and treats for us to enjoy and to share. But if we're trying to be conscious of, what we're eating, is it beneficial to avoid all of the sweet treats, or can you indulge a little bit and, have some of those cakes and pies and cookies and all sorts of good stuff that gets made around the holidays?
Um, Honestly, I think that you do need to indulge. Limiting yourself is only going to make you binge later. That's one of the downfalls of binge eating is it's because we are avoiding something, and then when we do get to eat it, that's all we can think about. It just have a little bit here and there, even mix it up, like have a cookie with an apple, like kind of counterbalance those things. So you're getting some health foods and then some of the fun foods, because food, once again, is supposed to be fun. And especially this time of year, there's a lot of traditional foods and treats that we all like to eat. And it's part of the celebration. So to avoid that, you're going to take away some of the enjoyment for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important that we allow ourselves to eat foods that we enjoy. And I believe that any time of year. So just being mindful of how that food makes you feel. So you could have a slice of anything. Like Katie was saying, I think it's when we allow ourselves, oh, I'll just have this one thing and then never again. I think that's when we get into that mentality of, oh, well, then I better eat a lot of this because I'm not going to get this opportunity again. And so if we give ourselves adequate opportunities to enjoy appropriate sized sweets or treats, I think that's a wonderful thing that we can do for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really important a really important item as well as a portion control. So knowing how much you're eating. How do we know what a good portion size for like a cookie or cakes would be? I mean, how do we know that? Because there's no nutrition label usually on homemade goods. So how do we know what the serving size, or how do we know how much we should eat of these sweet treats?
Okay, let's jump right into it. That's a great question. I think something that this reminds me of, and I think is important to share, is serving size on anything. So not our homemade meals, but anything that does give us a food label. I always tell people to be mindful that that's a suggestion. It's got an average amount of calories per day. So you might be someone who burns less or has a less active metabolism than the food label or more. So I think it's a lot more about paying attention to our bodies and our hunger cues. How big is a slice that we want, that we're excited to eat, that makes us feel included? How is our stomach feeling as we're eating it? Did we have a headache or fatigue before? Are we feeling more energized? So I think our bodies are the best teller of how much of any food, sweets or healthy foods, we should be eating.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. And one of the things that we can do for that is called mindful eating. And that's actually taking your time, really tasting the food, the crunch of the cookie or maybe the softness of the cookie, really exploring everything. We eat with our five senses, looking at the cakes or the cookies and taking just a moment just to really, really fully enjoy it. And that'll slow it down so we can actually listen to our body cues. like just mowing through something so fast that you don't have a chance to really, understand that your body is full. And nowadays that's what we do because of time constraints. But just taking a chance, enjoying your food, listening to your body is going to be one of the best things, and you're going to enjoy it more as well.
Thank you for that wonderful advice. I think that's a really important thing, just taking that time and just slowing down. Because again, like the holidays are meant to be enjoyed. So trying to savor every moment, I think is a good message for the season. All right. So this is the big question of the whole health matters. So I've had a great, or say I have a great routine for working out during the most of the year, but during the holidays, like I just can't seem to keep it regular. Should I try to get it to try to keep it regular throughout the year, or should I just, call it for the holidays and say, I'll pick it up back in the new year after all this craziness, after all the stress and after all the holiday treats are gone and not in my face anymore. Is that when I should pick it back up, or should I really try to keep exercising throughout the holidays?
I would say to generally answer the question, trying to stick to your routine, just like Katie had mentioned with kids. I think routines help everybody stay sane. So I think if you can stick with your routine, that's the better case scenario. But like anything, giving yourself permission to have breaks, that could work with exercise too. So if it's between being really stressed out and getting exercise, or being less stressed and not exercising, those weights, that gym will be there come January. And I think you can give yourself that grace. If we're talking about science and goals, it takes about 2 weeks of inactivity before any progress that you've had starts to become lost as far as muscular strength. So if we are at that athletic level and considering or worried about that, then you can only take 2 weeks off.
Wonderful. Yeah. And onto that with the 2 weeks, if we're concerned about gaining weight over the holidays, an important thing to remember is that 3,500 calories usually make a pound. So we're not going to consume, we're not going to gain 10 pounds over, a holiday dinner. It's just not going to happen. You gain weight over time and you lose weight over time. So being patient with yourself and understanding you may gain a little bit of weight during the holidays, but you also have to give yourself that same amount of time to lose that if that's what you wish. So what are some exercises that you could do in the home if, going to the gym or going somewhere else to work out is just kind of not an option with your schedule? What are some exercises that you could do at home that don't really require a lot of equipment or any equipment at all?
I'll go ahead and give us some guidance on that. So I put together a very brief PowerPoint, just with a couple visuals, in case some of these terms or positions aren't familiar. And then from there, I think this will be a great jumping off point for Katie and I to talk about other options for exercising in the home. Okay. So I started just very standard with a squat position. So by doing body weight squats, we can work the legs and our muscles, predominantly our upper thighs, which are called our quadriceps. So this is basically just like sitting down in a chair with purpose. You're going to put your weight in your heels, come down so that the top of your legs are roughly parallel with the floor if you can, and then come back up. I like to focus on upper body when I'm working with clients or training myself, because these muscles are larger. They require a lot of energy. So they'll get our heart rate up, and they're important to start with so that while we have the most energy, we can do these movements. So don't save them for the end when you're getting fatigued. Utilize them at the beginning. Under that same guise, a hip hinge, or with weight, it's called a deadlift. So this is an exercise that works the back of our legs and our glutes, so our two biggest muscles. This also secondarily helps our lower back. So you can either with your body weight, bend your knees slightly, feet are hip width apart, and you're just going to come down and touch your toes and then come up, keeping that back nice and straight. This and the squat, as they become easier and more familiar to us, we can increase the repetition. So instead of doing 10 of these, we could do 15 or 20, or we could increase the weight. But there's a lot of other options that we can utilize in the home if we have stairs. So a basement or an upstairs, they're great for doing laps on. That's going to help our heart and lung health. We can also use them just to step up on and jump down from. We can also do lunges anywhere throughout our home. And just like all those other lower body movements I mentioned, we can make those more difficult by holding weights. We can split anything up and work one leg at a time by resting one of our feet on the couch. So we can do single leg squats or lunges by putting our feet on a chair or a couch. We can work cardiovascular by doing any sort of jumping jack variation, so arms coming up and down or forward in interchanging motions. We can use our counters or the back of our couches and chairs to do incline push-ups. So that's an easier way to build upper body strength without doing those push-ups that we think of that are right on the ground. And then we can also do tricep dips. So that's that back of our arm muscle. And just like a lot of other things here, we can do those by just utilizing chairs or couches. So these are all wonderful examples that require no equipment and hopefully stuff that you have in your home.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenna, for putting that PowerPoint together.
My pleasure.
So now that we've covered a lot of different topics, we've covered stress and we've covered food and we've covered exercise. Are there any other items that you might want to leave our audience with? Any healthy tips or ideas that you might want to just share?
Just don't beat yourself up. You're going to overeat. You might miss a couple of days at the gym. Don't skip a meal just because you're wanting to save calories. Just go back to doing what you normally do. Eat healthy and try to move your body as much as you can, even though right now it's a little difficult because it's cold outside. But finding those things inside, putting on a YouTube video that you can exercise to, finding some joy throughout the holiday season and taking care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your family.
Thank you, Katie. I was basically, I'm going to echo that. Yeah, I think it's absolutely important that we keep in mind that anything that happens over the course of a couple days, whatever holidays we're celebrating, that maybe isn't ideal for us, it can very easily be undone. I think this is a time, like Katie said previously, just to focus on gratitude for our health, for our families, for our kids if we have them. And then I guess the last little tidbit of advice, we talked about getting the kids outside. Also try to get yourself outside. Vitamin D is so important. This also could make it a fun way to be active. So maybe try sledding, try cross-country skiing, try to get creative. It's cold, it's harder now, but we can definitely rise to the challenge and find something fun to do outside, I think.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Well, thank you for all of the healthy tips and the advice and your expertise. And I think that's going to wrap up our Health Matters for this month. So thank you so much for watching, and make sure to tune in next month for our next Health Matters. Have a happy holiday season.